Now we're going to wrap up today's amazing program with our Legislative Leaders panel. And to help me do that, I would like to invite up to the stage my co-moderator, Eric Scott, who's the Senior Political Director at NJ 101.5. Eric, please make your way to the stage. And while he's doing so, let me just tell you a little bit about Eric. 5-time Edward R. Murrow Award-winning journalist, for more than 30 years has been the host and producers of New Jersey's First News, quote unquote, the longest-running news program in New Jersey, which airs on our own 101.5. His broadcasts were voted Best Newscast by Associated Press 10 years in a row. We know he is the king early bird among us, and I know his decades of covering New Jersey politics will make this discussion even more lively. Eric, would you please come to the podium and introduce our panel for this morning, and then we will take off with our questions.
Thank you. Always interesting to get bipartisan discussions going on these issues, and we have a great panel for you again this year. Assemblywoman Oroho Dunn is the Assistant Minority Whip, also sits on the Budget Committee. Assemblywoman, if you would join us, please, on stage. Assemblywoman Eliana Pintor Marin, who just received her award. Would you please join us on the stage? She's here as the Assembly Budget Chairwoman. I think somebody mentioned this guy, Senator Steve Oroho, the Senate Minority Leader, if you would join us, please. And the Chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, Paul Sarlo. Senator, please. It seems like a year ago, we started and ended our legislative panel discussion centered around this issue, which has been talked about a lot today, and that is that 2.5% corporate business tax surcharge and whether it's going to sunset. We heard Governor Murphy say that he was not going to renew it. I think everybody on this stage has been universal in that view. Senator Sarlo, I think you even mentioned that last year at this time. Can we just reiterate for everybody here one more time that that will sunset as scheduled at the end of December? Everybody in agreement on that?
Yes.
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 You need a read my lips moment.
You gotta read it, right?
Yeah, okay.
I think the concern among a lot in the business community is you do have a lot of progressive groups that are continuing to push for a dedicated funding source, whether it's for New Jersey Transit, whether it's for senior property tax relief, that even if this sunsets, that doesn't mean something else might not arise, or that you may be looking at a different type of a surcharge. Are you even considering at this point an additional burden on businesses in the form of a surcharge or a tax or whatever that would be that source of dedicated funding for either property tax relief or for New Jersey Transit? And Senator Sarlo, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. And before I begin, I would be remiss. I've been in the legislature. I think now after this year, I'll be the fourth with the most seniority in the Senate. And you go through this process and you make a lot of friends, but there's a few friends that you know you'll be friends with for the rest of your life. And Steve Oroho is one of them. We have sat next to each other for many years on the Budget Committee. We talk often, not just during the day, but at night, and not about legislative matters, about personal matters. So, Steve, you're a personal friend, and look forward to spending a lot of time with you over the years. So thank you, for your friendship.
Same here with both. Thank you very much. And very true. And Eric, you're 100% right. Senator Sarlo was the first one last year, right at this event, that said, I am not supporting the surcharge to continue. And I think that was the start of part of the ability to make sure it didn't happen. So Senator Sarlo, thank you very much.
So let me get to the question that our moderator has posed. Clearly, New Jersey Transit, we need to determine collectively, not some progressive group or not the legislature, but us collectively, including the business community, of how we could find a dedicated revenue source for New Jersey Transit. We're okay for the balance of this year and heading into, but the cliff will come, I believe, in FY25. is in fiscal year 25, at the end of the fiscal year 25, where there will be a fiscal cliff for New Jersey Transit. We also have large portions of the state that are underserved and do not have new mass transit. And I was talking to some folks here, just a representative from Amazon, and how do they get their people to work. Collectively, we're gonna need to get in a room. I have ruled out using a CBT surcharge for a dedicated revenue source for New Jersey Transit. I did it last year. We just did it again here today. What that dedicated, we want to avoid a tax of all cases. Of course we want to avoid a surcharge. Of course we want to avoid a tax. We need to find some type of dedicated revenue source in the budget. And I'm trying not to be here, vague here at all. What that looks like, I am not certain, quite frankly. Can our general revenue support it? There's a potential for general revenues to support it. Can the TTF backfill it a little bit? Yes, that's another potential option. But we need a dedicated revenue source, and we should avoid any type of surcharge or tax on the business community without any input from the business community.
But just to be clear then, since we don't want to be vague here, are you talking about letting this CBT surcharge expire? Are you also closing the door on a new CBT or a new business surcharge to fund New Jersey Transit?
I'm closing the door on that. Yeah, I don't believe a new CBT surcharge should be used to fund New Jersey Transit.
Okay. Let's open that up to the rest of the panel. What about in the Assembly?
So Paul and I have had this discussion as well. The problem is, as we know, the CBT surcharge, there was a lot of misnomers. The CBT surcharge strictly went into just a general fund. It did not fund anything else. I know that was getting coupled with that it was being used for other things, Green Acres and all that other stuff. That's not, right? That's what the regular CBT goes for. The surcharge was purely just to help fund the budget, and that was an understanding, and the business community did come to the table at that point. And we've had that discussion. I don't think it's really sustainable, because at the end of the day, we're also asking the business community to fix an issue that I think we have a larger problem. And this is not an issue. New Jersey Transit is not the only one, and we're not the only state that's facing this issue. It's actually more of becoming of a federal issue. And we've had discussions with New Jersey Transit in order to find out, are other states, A, trying to apply or going to get any federal help? And B, is there something that at the federal level can come down to be able to at least help fill some holes, especially when it comes to just fixing New Jersey Transit? Not necessarily its structural deficit, but we have a lot of railways that we have, train lines that we have to fix. And having a dedicated source at this portion of just the CBT surcharge, to be quite honest, and Paul, I think you would agree, wouldn't even really be that helpful as far as in the whole as we are. So I think that we do need to look at other options. I don't think that having corporations pay for it is really the way to go, because I think at the end of the day, we have to look at something else that's more valuable. And we've been talking about obviously the TTF having to go back out for funding and what that's even going to look like, because that's changing as well. We have more electric cars now. What are we going to do with that? So there's a lot of different ideas and different things that we're trying to recapture. So at this point, I think I don't think that's the avenue.
It's interesting because you mentioned a lot of things are coming together, and whether it's the governor's energy master plan, whether it's the electrification, whether it's infrastructure improvements that need to be made with New Jersey Transit, or any of the other budgetary constraints that the state is going to face. And Chairman Sarlo, you had talked about that fiscal cliff, and even last year you were talking about the fact that at some point, that money is going to start going away. The renewable revenue sources aren't there. But I think from the business community, while they're looking at this as a victory that this surcharge is going to expire, I think what they really would like to see is the possibility of the corporate business tax being reduced further to make New Jersey more competitive. And Senator Oroho, you may be on your way out, but you've been dealing with these issues for a very long time. Is there room or sentiment to even consider a reduction?
I think Eric, thank you very much. And I think there should be, because one of the things we've always talked about, And when you go back to the original tax restructuring that Senator Sarlo and I championed through there, where we got rid of the estate tax, retirement income exclusion up to 100,000. Now it's up, and the cliff has now been extended to 150,000. And then also the decrease in sales tax. We had to, in order to get out-of-state drivers to pay more in, because there was such a huge subsidy going on. So there was a huge tax restructuring. We raised the earned income tax credit. So I do think there is, and one of the things that you have to continue to look at is the idea of the capital. What brings more capital into New Jersey? And raising the taxes isn't going to bring it in. But I do think when we got rid of the estate tax, it had a huge impact on getting additional income tax revenue here, because you kept some, capital here in New Jersey. And let's face it, what does capital do? Capital creates jobs. You heard John talking about it before. That's what absolutely happens. And you look at our, so I do think that as we become and as we do things to become more competitive, New Jersey's got great assets. Attracting that capital is extremely, extremely important for creation of new jobs. I think one of the things that New Jersey Transit has to look at, I was a commuter in and out of New York City from Sussex County and actually Morris County for a little while for nearly 20 years. I think one of the things that they have to take a look at is, different ways of doing business. And, I ask the same question over and over again about, do they ever really try and explain to commuters what the value of taking out New Jersey Transit is? And I don't think they ever really do that and explain it very well. Plus the fact you got this whole thing called fare box recovery on the different routes. And quite frankly, they may have to start taking a look at is you have lower income people throughout the state where there is some service that, quite frankly, they should be getting the subsidy, but some of the people who are making good money, like I was in New York City, and there's plenty of them paying the same fare, maybe they have to start taking a look at that fare box recovery where in certain routes it's less than 10%, and other routes it's over 100%. So I think that's one thing that they could certainly take a look at, and also how they explain the value of public transportation, New Jersey Transit specifically, because I know when I was taking it, it was going to cost me a heck of a lot more money driving from Sussex, and that time was so valuable to me.
Much has been said. I've just finished 2 years on the Budget Committee, and both cycles, we had the NJ Transit Executive Director as well as the Commissioner of DOT saying New Jersey Transit will never be profitable, right? So the corporate business tax, the surcharge, no, New Jersey does not need to have the highest rate in order to support New Jersey Transit. So we would have to look at how else we could service that. I know Pintor Marin, his chairwoman, has brought up some issues. I have to say though, you guys seated us this way. We are willing to sit next to one another.
I had nothing to do with it.
I noticed that. I'm like, it doesn't have to be, and we sit closely together in committee, right, through all those long days and hours of hearings. But that's what was stated in the last two cycles that I heard, and we really have to think about protecting the rider, right, from even more price hikes as we talk about how the cost of living has become so untenable, and we can't, the businesses shouldn't be bearing that burden either. So.
Chairman?
Last thing on New Jersey Transit, I know we have other issues, but clearly work from home, hybrid workplaces has changed the way people work, not just in New Jersey, but across the country. Ridership is down. And I'm not aware, I'm not aware of any mass transportation agency across this entire country that is quite profitable these days, right? All mass transportation agencies are subsidized by government. I don't care if you're a blue state, red state, or if it's Amtrak. They're all struggling to make ends meet. And it's just, right now, folks are staying away from mass transportation. Will it come back in the future? I'm sure it will come back, absolutely. New York City will come back, right? New York City's struggling. It will come back and mass transportation will spike. So for us to think New Jersey Transit, yes, it has some ills and wills, but every mass transportation agency across this country has the same ills and wills.
But you're also going to have a potential increase in ridership when congestion pricing goes into effect in New York with the sole idea that you're going to drive more people out of their cars and into mass transit. So you could be looking at a calamitous collision of circumstances where you're running out of money for New Jersey Transit, yet you now have an influx of riders that you have to service. What do you do? I mean, I know that that's not really the heart of what this question was. It was kind of what we got to with the CBT. And I guess before we move on to the next topic, I just wanted to kind of wrap up with the idea of, is there talk among any budget committee members about the possibility of even a small decrease in the CBT overall to help business navigate the next couple of years?
There is on our side.
I was going to say, if there's any talk, always.
I show them and I say, you know, you're
Come on,
shaking
Senator,
your
I
head.
said all those nice things.
So let's stay.
I do think, remember, see, we were part of that one committee when Senate President Sweeney was on, and we did talk about it, but the problem is that we also have to have a discussion, a larger discussion, right, on our how we tax, period, right? Our tax policies are really a very big issue. It's a big issue just even for us for budget, right? Because we have to wait until April just to really see where we're at. So I think that there could be room, but I think that we have to really take a closer look and make some tough decisions on how we tax other things in order to lower the CBT. I think we have to really be honest on that.
And Eric, we might be missing the biggest revenue stream that's out there, and it won't include any tax increase whatsoever. And Senator Sarlo and Assemblywoman Pintor Marin brought it up, and that's the people who are living in New Jersey that used to work in New York, are no longer working in New York, or not working in New York 100% of the time, and they're still paying New York taxes. Now, just so everybody knows, the order of magnitude of resident taxes that people who live in New Jersey and work there, $4 billion. That's not New Jersey records, that's New York records. And so we're at least, it's $1 billion revenue source that we got to be more aggressive, because you could think about what we could do with that $1 billion, and there's no tax increase in there whatsoever. In fact, the people will get a tax reduction.
Eric, I can't help but stay on the issue of taxes, and so why don't you continue with your next question on that, because I absolutely love that we're having a discussion about comprehensive discussion on all taxes in New Jersey and how we look at that differently. I'll come back to the other issue after that, but continue on that.
I mean, is there anybody that is involved in business in this room where your main concern is not what your tax burden is? I mean, anybody who's not concerned about taxes, put your hand up. The NJBIA just came out with their 65th annual Business Outlook Survey. Small businesses in particular said they were slightly less challenged by inflation than they were a year ago, but profits were down in 2023. The outlook for profits also down in 2024. And business taxes, on top of that, are an incredible burden. New Jersey businesses have paid over $1 billion in new unemployment insurance taxes. We talked about that a year ago. There was still some discussion and hope at that point that maybe there would be some relief for businesses on that. That didn't happen. Shouldn't small businesses, and let's focus on them just for a moment, at least have a chance at some relief? There's a lot of talk about property tax relief for New Jersey residents, but what about some type of structural property tax or tax relief for small businesses in New Jersey that will help them weather another difficult year? And Assemblywoman, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I know the results of the survey were described as a mixed bag, but the point that I am mindful of as I walked into this room is that 68% of the respondents said lawmakers are not doing enough to address the affordability issues for business owners. So all of us up here and our colleagues really need to be mindful of that. And that's why I say we look for your ideas and solutions to that.
But I think it's also important to note that you have businesses that are paying nearly half of the state's property taxes. And I don't think a lot of people realize that that is in fact the case. But you do have, businesses are paying, almost 50%, but they're not getting any of the tax relief. Chairman, why is that? Well,
you want to change, Clearly, we are a property tax-driven state. I didn't create that. None of us appears to create it. As Assemblywoman Pintor Marin said, you need to look at the tax structure as a whole. Listen, I think we're all forgetting this. We worked with the BIA to do the CBT reform bill, the most comprehensive CBT reform that's been done in decades here in the state of New Jersey. Revenue neutral, by the way, but it helps some. There's some winners and there's some losers in that bill. And that was the give and take, right? There was some winners and losers. Clearly on the property tax issues, yes, businesses, corporations take up large swaths of land. And a lot of the industrial, some of the things we're looking at now is these larger warehouses that are being built in some of these areas. And the first thing they say to us, hey, we need transit. How do we get transit? How do we get government services here? Well, providing government services to you building a large warehouse in a remote area provides government services. It increases the cost of government to get you those services, whether it's police, fire, ambulance, or mass transportation, or sewers, or roads. So I would love to be able to sit here and say, we're gonna lower property taxes for business, okay? I don't think anybody here would believe me if I would say it, so I'm not gonna say it, quite frankly. We are all here to make our business community competitive. It's not just about taxes, it's about healthcare, it's about people wanting to work from home, it's about regulations, right? It's about bureaucracy. You hear me rail about bureaucracy. You gotta look at the big picture here. How do we make our businesses more competitive? I think all four of us are all about looking, how do we make our businesses more competitive? You just can't look at property taxes, right? How do we make business more competitive as a whole?
Well, you're also talking about, in this particular question, you're talking about small businesses, right? And you're spending or proposing to spend billions of dollars on property tax relief to keep seniors in New Jersey, but not a dime to keep small business in New Jersey.
But I do have this, so we actually had that issue with the tax incentives that were going to be, that some of the corporations were in, right? For example, in my district, the Prudentials, the Panasonics, all of that. My downtown is killed. I mean, it is really hurting. And those are all small businesses. So then we thought about, okay, people are not coming back to work, right? How do we at least try to have a give and take? Chris, and you know this, how do we allow for companies to still keep their tax credit, right, and not be removed completely, but yet give a little something? So we created a VIG, so at least some of those small businesses could draw down on some of that money. I think the last couple of years, we've really been thrown in for a loop because the way we've kind of done business, and even some of these things that we've talked about, we're kind of just trying to work with the issues that are coming to us, right? Like, we didn't really expect inflation to be this high. We didn't really expect people to be working from home for this long. We didn't really expect companies to be struggling to get their workforce back. So we've had a lot of these issues prior. I think they're all coming to the forefront just because of the recent years and how the business climate and how we conduct business in the state has changed. Quite honestly, I'm with Senator Sarlo. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think we're going to say here we're going to, give a tax relief to small businesses as well, when you're also trying to keep people in their homes as well. So it's kind of like a give and take. I don't know if we're doing it the right way, but I think that on both sides of the aisle we're listening and we're trying to figure out how we can be helpful.
One of the things about the idea about the comprehensive, when you take a look at things, is because many things affect businesses, and quite frankly, some of the things we're able to do for the corporations and small businesses that sometimes we feel like, for example, the single sales factor. You go back and when we worked on stuff like that on a bipartisan basis, the tax laws carry forward. I don't know if you remember what small businesses weren't allowed to carry forward losses.
We did change that,
and we actually changed it on a bipartisan. I think it was maybe. On a budget committee, I think we all signed on to that. So there's things that we have been able to, to get done. But for small businesses, one of the things, it may not be the property tax issue, but the idea of adjusting for inflation, the income tax rates on a person, because many small businesses are pass-through entity businesses, so they pay personal income tax. And so the idea of adjusting for inflation, something that the federal government did 40 years ago is something that, and maybe that there can't be something on the property tax, but if you knew that you were going to have adjustment for inflation every year in the taxes, because they are, whether it be an LLC, an LLP, or an S Corp or somebody, they're paying individual income tax rates. So maybe there could be some other ways to, to take a look at it.
Senator Oroho, do you remember what was the first year that you sat on the Budget Committee?
My first year in the legislature in 2008 was my first year in the legislature.
Do you remember what the budget was in 2008?
Oh, geez. It was at least, I think it was maybe, what is it, 25 billion? Somewhere right now, I think.
25, right?
So.
Last year's state budget, largest in state history, but you can really say that every year. 54.3 billion, 7% higher than fiscal year 23, 56% higher than when Governor Murphy took office in 2018. Senator Sarlo, right after the budget was approved, again you warned about not being nearsighted about fiscal conditions. Talked about how federal aid that we've been relying on had a limited lifespan, long-term borrowing, warning again about that fiscal cliff. It's a pretty basic question, but how does New Jersey continue to sustain this level of spending, especially knowing, as you and your colleagues have acknowledged, that there's a big pile of money that's going to go away?
I don't get to listen to 101.5 in Bergen County, but they listen to me. I like that. I get fuzz on the radio, but they get to listen to me. I like that, actually. It's good. It's good. I will say to this. I consider myself probably the most practical, moderate Democrat in the state. I am a CEO of a large company. Same company. I worked for the same company my entire life since I graduated engineering school. And I'm always practical about what we have to look at what's happening at the national level. We have to look at what's going on Wall Street. New Jersey is driven by Wall Street bonuses, right? You see Wall Street, I watch what's going on Wall Street. I see Wall Street take a dip. I know our revenues are going to take a dip. So yes, I have been out there banging the drum a little bit saying we need to be careful about a potential fiscal cliff in the future. That's why, though, we have a record surplus this year. Record surplus, right? About 8 billion and change, a record surplus. Never been heard before. So yeah, we have a large budget increase, but we also have an 8 billion surplus. No Republican governor or Democratic governor in the past could ever bang the table and say we had $8 billion surplus. And we also fully made pension payments for the last 6 years. Fully have made. We are on target. That's never occurred before either. We've brought our pension system back in line after years of folks not paying the bills. So I am continuing to bang the drum that we as a legislature need to be very mindful of what's happening at the national level. We have a lot of geopolitical issues that are facing us right now. We all know what's going on around the world today. We know about inflation. We have a presidential election that's going to be an ugly election that's going to be coming down our pike. All of these are going to have impacts on the national economy, which will flow downhill and impact us here in New Jersey. So yes, you will continue to hear me. We need to be mindful of what's happening.
So I think what's important, just staying on that for one moment, is the spending side as well. We've talked a lot about revenue and raising revenue in order to afford where we are today. Eric's point was great, and it was about a $25 billion, I think, when you came in, Senator, right? And in the last 7 years, it's grown, I think, 70% from about 30-something to the 54 it is today in terms of that general budget. I would encourage us all to think about, we don't have to start at 54 billion when we go into the budget cycle. There were one-time spends in there. The idea, some of the federal money that we had here was meant to be investment and one-time spend. And we did see that in infrastructure and workforce development and things like that. I mean, I would love to see us make a pledge that says when we go into the budget cycle this season, we're going to say 54 isn't where we start. Where we start is baseline. What is it that we must do? And then where do we have room from there? That said, I'd like to shift our topic a little bit because current issue. We talked a little bit before about transportation, ridership, congestion pricing, how that might drive more people into their vehicles. Let's marry that to affordability and talk about the plan to have 0 gas cars by 2035 here in the state of New Jersey, causing all New Jerseyans, if they're going to buy a new car, for it only to be an electric car. And let me just tee that up a little more by saying, if we're going to hit 100% purchase-only electric vehicles in 2035, we must hit over 50% by 2027, which is only 3 years away, and today we are at 8%. And let me just add on top of that the challenge of a vulnerable infrastructure, where particularly in South Jersey right now, we have many projects in the queue that can't get on the grid. And on the affordability factor, let's think about those urban centers we're talking about, and let's think about the more challenged communities we have and how they afford the type of electric vehicle we see today, and where are they going to plug them in our urban centers. With all that, isn't it incumbent upon our legislature, now that the governor, the DEP, did pass those rules just this week, after BIA led what I think was a successful campaign of, let's see, 5,000 people who asked our legislators to step in, and a majority of information on social media saying, please don't go down this route now. We all want clean green, but it must be affordable, and it must be timely and comprehensive. Is this not the opportunity for the legislature now to step in and take up that mandate with some legislation to put this on pause or slow it down?
I'll jump in.
Want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Sure. Okay, no, go ahead. Assemblywoman, go ahead.
The most
I don't want to
junior
steal the
member of
thunder
Budget
here.
Committee. I'm sorry, I'm breaking rules to moderation, to the moderator's rules, but I had to jump back on the spending. I love your idea of, like, we don't have to start at 54 billion, and I pay attention to numbers. The governor that was here today is the 56th governor, and the budget has gone up by 56% since the start of his administration, right? So we have to rein in spending. We're going to have to make hard choices. And I don't know, again, I'm new to the committee. Did my 2 cycles through. I don't know why we're not doing that. I asked specifically the treasurer why, if we're looking at revenue going down, are we not making sure that we're spending is curtailed and commensurate with that? And we were told, because we can absorb it. Well, for how long? Right? And so I'd be remiss, I'd regret if I left this room without mentioning that we have a $1.5 billion deficit, yet we provided $1.5 billion in earmarks, also known as pork projects.
Can I just jump in there for one? Can I just jump in for 1 second? One of the things that, and we didn't get to manufacturing, we're probably going to run out of time, but there's $90 million one-time spend in this budget for manufacturing that was championed by this organization. Okay? That's a one-time spend, 90 million, okay? So there's other millions of dollars spent that have been championed by this organization as well. I agree. There is a lot of one-time spend, and we need to look at the spending piece. But let's also, 90 million of manufacturing money, I could go through program by program, and I hope people are taking advantage of it.
It's a wonderful investment, and we look forward to seeing more of that in the future.
And not only that,
I
when
was gonna respond about
you look
EVs
at when you
next,
look at the
sorry.
one-time spend as well, and you see how much infrastructure money was also doled out, even for smaller projects, an infrastructure project, and even a small community. How many jobs does that create? The ripple effect that is. Correct. That is one of the reasons why we've been able to maintain the
And
surplus.
long-lasting investment. We agree
Absolutely.
100% on that.
All right, back to electric cars.
Just before we go to electric vehicles.
Back to electric cars.
But
It's not happening by 2035.
Glad we started.
I just want to say, actually, you had 3 members of what was the Path to Progress sitting up here, and I hope that, because the Senate actually passed bills in order to implement the Path to Progress. And one of the key things there is we need to have a new kind of, retirement benefit plan that is more modernized for, our younger employees and whatnot. We always talk about the fact that there's more millionaires in New Jersey today than there was. One of the key reasons there are more millionaires today all over in the United States is because of the defined contribution plans where younger employees can take that money with them, and it's their assets. So that's one thing, and we came up with a great plan, the hybrid plan, the 3 of us are on there, we all put our names on that report. I just hope, I'm not gonna be there, but I certainly hope, like I said, I'm a bad penny, I'll keep showing up. I certainly hope they take that Path to Progress report and actually look and implement some of those recommendations, because that's where you get after some of the cost drivers and not just all the revenue, generators.
Well, now we can get back to the electric cars.
The electric cars, sorry.
I think it was great. Just before, we heard from Senator Oroho again. I thought I heard you say it's not happening by 2035.
Thank you, Eric. And here's the practical aspect of it. I know everybody in this room fully understands the need to invest in green energy and move that in that direction. I don't think anybody here is opposed to that. However, let's be practical about it. 2035 is not happening. First of all, the automakers and the car makers don't have the ability, the capacity to even build those vehicles for us. That's number one, right? And number two is the infrastructure is not here to actually support it. I see it on the infrastructure side. You know, they're redoing some different park and rides, and they're redoing some strip malls, and they're putting in one or two of these because they're costly yet to build the infrastructure. The grid needs to be strengthened to support the electric charging stations. There's a significant amount of federal investment in our infrastructure that needs to go on before we can tell everybody to go out and buy an electric car. Mm-hmm. So I am sure somebody in the DEP thought this was a great idea to get a great headline, but it's not practical. And we know that, and I think you all know that. Of course, our goal is to get there. We all want to work there, but we have a long way to go, and it's great to talk about it, but you need federal dollars to invest in our infrastructure to do this. And at the end of the day, our car makers and our auto dealers, our car makers, our car manufacturers still don't have the capacity to build out all the vehicles that are needed.
So we agree 100%. Thank you on the practicality. Much appreciated. It is a rulemaking process, and it's a process that is underway. And so we do, again, ask because, again, predictability, certainty, and people who are looking at the state and they see rules like that, and if that's something they get concerned about, sure, we want to make sure that we can bring clarity to the fact that it's not going to happen by 2035. So we look forward to some activity on that from you.
Headline 1015, Sarlo says it's not happening by 2035.
I would love to,
I won't be able to hear it, but that'll be the headline.
I will,
Clearly, we know who loves the
you can
attention.
always download our app, and I'll be happy to send it back to you.
I would love to go back to manufacturing. NJBIA in 2024 is launching the Year of the Manufacturer. The reason we're doing that is, and folks heard me say this earlier today, this is an extremely opportune time for investment in manufacturing. There's federal dollars, there's state dollars, the whole idea of reshoring, onshoring. New Jersey has 11,000 plus manufacturers across the state, but they have challenges too. Those challenges could range anything from an environmental justice bill that will not allow manufacturers to expand one iota in the state of New Jersey. So how do we reconcile their growth with a bill like that when, again, we all want clean, green, and otherwise for the future, right? You mentioned the $90 million program. We're thankful for that, and the voucher program, et cetera. But what ideas do you have in order to strengthen manufacturing as we proceed forward here in New Jersey? And I don't know who'd like to start. Assemblywoman, I see you nodding. Would you like to say something on that?
Yeah, I hail from Morris County, right? We have a pretty robust Chamber of Commerce, and I meet with a lot of manufacturers, but they don't look like what you think of your traditional manufacturer, right? So the smaller, most manufacturing now, I think the average size is maybe 20 employees or less. So we've got to focus on being able to assist, particularly women and minority business owners, to be able to not just start their business in New Jersey, but have everything here in New Jersey. They tell me that all the time. I want to be able to get my supplies, the parts, or even the assembly, all here in New Jersey. But I think it's important to recognize that the largest demographic of people leaving New Jersey are the prime age of our workforce, which is, and this is IRS data. I think it's 25 to 44 years of age. So those just beginning their career, recognizing, where's the value in investing in my career and my family here in New Jersey. So we have to make sure that we're investing in that pipeline, having the workforce, develop the workforce here. We know that our greatest export is the high school graduate. So how do we address that? Senator?
On the manufacturing piece, I have served over the years on various different manufacturing caucuses. I believe Senator Greenstein has recently chaired a manufacturing caucus. I believe we should continue to have dialogue on the manufacturing. I am as an engineer, I am a big supporter of manufacturing here. I think as a country as a whole, we've lost our manufacturing industry. How do we get that back, right? How do we get back the manufacturing industry across the country here and here in New Jersey? We're still blessed to have all of our pharmaceutical plants here, and we need to do everything in our power to keep them here. And I know I have a strong relationship with all of them. We talk often. But on the manufacturing piece, you know, as I do talk about a lot of this green energy initiatives, whether it's the batteries, the vehicles, you know, we should look at incentives to provide companies to build manufacturing plants here to develop those green technology and the batteries, the vehicles. I don't want to use the word wind. I do like whales. I don't want to use the word wind, but we did invest in the Paulsboro port for the manufacturing of the monopole. So there's not a person up here who doesn't support manufacturing. We all support manufacturing. We got to work collectively with you, whether it's incentives, but we have to bring some manufacturing back into the state.
And I'll just tease you with two ideas. Thanks to Senator Oroho, who was one of the sponsors for the Bipartisan Manufacturing in Higher Education Act, which got through the Senate twice. We can't seem to get it through the Assembly. And so we're looking to our Assembly leaders if we can get that through. That kind of seems like a low-hanging fruit for us. In addition, New York has a CBT exemption for in-state manufacturing. Perhaps we could consider something like that here in New Jersey in order to boost that economy. I see heads nodding. I'll take that as an affirmative. Great. Eric, you want to talk about regulatory reform to wrap us up?
Senator Sarlo, you know I'm using that whale comment too, by the way. A lot of what we talked about in terms of the financial burden on businesses, centered on taxes, centered on spending, it's centered on dollars and cents, which everybody here has agreed is a complicated issue when you're talking about tax rates and revenue generators, et cetera. But let's talk about something a little bit different. In the NJBIA survey, 3%, only 3% of businesses said that New Jersey is better than other states when it comes to the cost of regulatory compliance. 4% said New Jersey's better than other states in the timely issuance of permits. This came up 2 years ago when the governor vetoed a bill that would have created that red tape commission to kind of look at all of those issues. Where does that stand? Is hope lost at this point now for that type of regulatory or red tape reform? It doesn't cost the state anything, but that's something that could greatly benefit the business community.
I'll just start. Eric, I agree with you 100%. I thought that 3%, quite frankly, if I was on your side, I'd be right with you. I'm in a business, I'm the CEO of a large company. So at the end of the day, we need to do better on regulatory. I was the sponsor of the Red Tape Commission bill along with Senator Oroho. I have railed against bureaucracy. I think sometimes our DEP and our DCA, I would love to go down there sometimes and walk floor to floor and just shake people to say, we could get those permits out the door a little bit faster. You're strangling our businesses. You're right. Regulatory reform, we all need permits. We all need protections. We all want clean water. We all want to make sure work is properly permitted, but the bureaucracy needs to get out of the way. We need to make it less onerous for people who want to develop and build here in the state of New Jersey, or maybe not even develop or build, just do a modification to their plant, or do a modification to their building or infrastructure. So yes, we need to do better. I have been railing about bureaucracy. The Red Tape Commission, I support wholeheartedly.
We actually called it the Government Efficiency and Regulatory Review, because when we had the red tape, and it was bipartisan, bicameral business, we had skilled trades on it. It was very successful. And quite frankly, every single legislator up here voted in favor of it. There was only one negative, and actually it was a Republican who voted against it. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure why the governor absolutely vetoed it. I think there's a misconception out there that this commission could actually change something. No, it can recommend something that either the legislature needs to create a new law that the governor has to sign, or the administration could change their regulatory, maybe the regulatory process. So what we did is we made Senator Sarlo had the governor's chief innovation officer as the chairperson of the committee. So I hope the legislature will take that up again And quite frankly, when all of us vote in favor, that quite frankly, we talk to the government and say, hey, listen, you know, we're veto-proof here. Help us out here. And it's not that we're coming after the administration or anything. We just want to give the ability to come and take a look at some of the regulations that are there. Because some of the things that we heard when we actually called it red tape, you'd scratch your head and say, why are we still doing that?
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, and it was extremely well, well received, and I think it was successful. But every single one of us voted yes.
Is it going to come up again?
I
The
hope so.
legislation?
I hope so, because I think when I first came into the legislature, the senators probably helped me out. There was a commission also when they were revamping some of the corporate structure rules, correct?
Yeah.
Like proxy, voting by all these things. So why this makes complete sense. I'm not sure why we wouldn't be able to take it up, Paul, in the next session.
There's no reason why we've done some small things along the way, like the permits.
Yes.
We allow now private entities to do inspections.
Yes, but that permit bill took over a year and a half to get done. It's crazy. It should not take that long.
Take it out of the hands of, the building departments and DCA, allow private engineering and architectural firms.
So I think that's an excellent example in that we were there at the bill signing because BIA was one of the lead organizations to move that bill and work in unison with the administration and the legislature. Very interesting, on the bill signing day, one of the bipartisan legislators who was there, when he stood up to speak about the bill, he said, haven't we been talking about this for 10 years? This is a no-brainer. Why did it take us so long to get this done? And I say that for the reason that I think sometimes there's a perception that if the business community is knocking on your door, we must be wanting to cut a corner. We must be wanting some efficiency that doesn't have other benefit to it. And we say that because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. We have great research. Thank you all for recognizing, acknowledging the great research that BIA brings to the table whenever we bring a policy matter in, because we don't make stuff up, right? And we think that we have the opportunity going into the new session. I'm looking over at our partners at GSI. We're putting together what we would call a roadmap for economic growth that I think has some really nice things in it that sum up beautifully what you said about let's take on regulatory reform, let's say no to CBT, let's comprehensively find a way to address our tax challenges here in the state of New Jersey. We heard positive things from all of you, and I think that leaves us room and opportunity to do some great things in 2024.
And like the LSRP program we did a few years back, right?
Yes.
Great program. It's had some issues getting off the ground, but it's up and running now. Putting the hands, letting private entities go out and do this work. The expertise of the private entities, more expertise than your folks at the DEP, perhaps.
And if you look at a city like Newark, I mean, they've recently are in the process of creating a second zoning board because they just have so many things in the pipeline that they can't get done. They're going to need to expedite some stuff. And in order to get things done, it's just going to be sitting there if they can't get to permits. Listen, you're building in Newark, it's going to be contaminated the majority of the time. So if we can't get that process going, it's just going to, it just stifles growth.
I just want to add, I'm a prime sponsor on this legislation and many other pieces, particularly the kind of the 2 in, 2 out rule. We should really look at that every time we develop something new. We should be unpacking and unloading. Sorry, I was just thinking, you talked about your roadmap. There's going to be 37 new members to the legislature. So that should be kind of an education 101 on, right, what we're going to accomplish once we just hit the ground running on that issue. So, I don't know why it was vetoed. Do you guys know why it was vetoed? Yeah,
No.
it was
Not true.
before me.
Not true.
But we should be considering adopting a Regulatory Flexibility Act like many other states have, in alignment with the federal act to not only identify duplication, right, but also oftentimes there's contradictory regulations between the feds and the state that just put small business owners particularly in a bad spot.
I just want to add something in the Assemblywoman. One of the things we all have in common up here, we all serve on the Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Exactly.
Okay, I think every new member coming into the legislature should at least serve one term. I've served on it for 24 years now almost, on the Senate Budget and Appropriation Committee, the longest serving chair, but I think every member should, because you have the opportunity to meet with the DEP, the DCA. You have the opportunity, I see Skip, who was a longtime executive director, nodding his head. You have the opportunity to meet with every department and get a better handle as a legislator. So when you go to sponsor a bill, you recognize this bill may cost us money. This bill may not work. And budget members really get a broad spectrum of what government's all about.
Very true.
But it's also, and I know Mr. Semino's going to kill me, Skip. But with Skip, I mean, it was CBT. Literally, you guys were outside, and Michele, you said it. You know, sometimes people think that it's because it's the business community they have an issue. No, you guys were really waving your hands and saying this is going to be a big issue for us, right? And if you don't have sometimes people that are willing to listen and bring you to the table, Skip was like, where is everybody? Where's the coalition? I said, Skip, they're right outside the office. I'm gonna bring them in. And, you know, he sat down and we went literally item by item on some of the issues that were gonna be. And sometimes that's what ends up working. And sometimes, you know, I don't understand why certain things are not done, and it is, but we have to go back to the drawing board, because if it makes sense, why not do it?
But you are right, this has been an issue for a long time. I mean, I will date myself, but I can remember having conversation about DEP regulation with John Schur when he was in Governor Florio's office. So that goes back many years.
Eric, last word as we wrap up?
What is our last word? I think, you know, I think the interesting bipartisanship that's up here, you know, because, and to Senator Sarlo, your point that everybody should have to serve on the budget committee, so you see how the sausage is made. You at least, the public may not want to see that, but the legislature should know how that's made. What is the one priority that you're going to take into this new legislative session that could potentially help the business community? And Senator Oroho, I'm going to ask you that question a little bit differently at the end. So we'll start with you, but what is the one business priority that you are going to take into the new legislative session?
This is for me?
Yep.
Oh, right. It has to be more investment in childcare. And I've already, you know, introduced a package of bills on that, and I believe my counterparts have similar bills, so we can really have to come together, and because I think there is overall agreement on it. Thank you. I see. You can clap loudly on that. You know, those who are participating in the workforce part-time, involuntarily, 94% of them are women. I agree with the governor on that. It falls on women's shoulders. So we have to recognize that there's more to do. I think increasing the child tax credit is a good start. Increasing the age for the child tax credit and investing in that infrastructure. It's a $4.1 billion industry. We need to recognize it for that it's an economic issue beyond just a social issue. And I'm glad that during COVID, we did recognize that to some degree. Everybody was talking about how do we get people to work, and the focus was on transit. Well, how do you get people to work? We're gonna make sure that we have good quality childcare for their children.
And I want to thank you for that, Assemblywoman, because it was one of our areas to cover and we just ran out of time. But I think you know, and I think this audience knows, that UFBIA's 110% support on this. As we said, we can't have our workers at work if our children aren't in safe places, and we led that cause at the beginning of COVID, and we continue to support. And Senator Ruiz's, you know, multi-bill package, we were there at the beginning, and I know there's some stuff in lame duck coming around. We look forward to working with you on that. Back to you.
Chairwoman, what's your top priority that might benefit business?
That's tough for me because I'm very business friendly. So whether it's continuing to expand tax incentives, you know, we can look at some of the smaller business ones. I know, Chris, you've come up with a couple of things. Obviously, child tax credit. I might have to take a look at this now this year. I'm just joking. That is crucial. You know, during the pandemic, if there was someone that stayed behind, it was female working women. That had to make very tough choices. So as chair of budget, to be quite honest with you, I really have the privilege and the honor to really dive deep in some of these issues. And I take a lot of them to heart, whether it's more money in investing in education in order to have more apprenticeship. Not every kid is going to college nowadays. The cost of college is expensive. Whether it's participating or making sure that we have more money in manufacturing. So for myself, I have quite a few things that I'm interested in. It's hard to pinpoint just one.
Chairman?
Thank you, and I concur, whether it's the child tax credit or investment in infrastructure, we have the TTF renewal that we have to talk about. My number one priority, and my role has changed over the years, is the chairman of the budget, is the budget. That's my number one priority. That's what I will be focusing. The day we get sworn in, we will be hearing from the governor, and it's a sprint till June, and my number one priority will be the budget to ensure that we still remain competitive from the business aspect. We're dealing with this potential fiscal cliff that we've all been talking about. The governor spoke about it. How do we balance a budget, control our spending, and how do we balance a budget without having to go back to the taxpayer?
And Senator Oroho, since you won't be in the new legislative session, I'll hand you a magic wand for a moment. Based on all of your experience up to this point and your experience in dealing with budgets, if you could change one thing that would make New Jersey more business friendly, what would it be?
Probably looking at how you bring, when I started my career in the legislature, more capital into New Jersey. The idea, we talked before about the path to progress. You got to look at those cost drivers, but I do think the idea of keeping capital and attractive to capital here, we got that New York, New Jersey issue, we got the indexation of our income tax rates, charitable contributions. We send billions of dollars out of our state where we have our charities who could use that money if we allowed them to take a deduction on their New Jersey tax return for a contribution to a New Jersey charity, right? And then the other, and then the other thing is retirement income. We started along the way, but if we could raise that ability for seniors and grandparents, I have 10 grandkids. Rita and I want to stay in New Jersey. She asked me one time, "What do you want to live when you retire?" So first of all, I'm not retiring ever again, right? Second of all, I want to live right here. I love New Jersey. These are my friends here, right? I've been so fortunate to serve on the budget committee with Senator Sarlo, so fortunate to serve with the committee, the chairwoman on the path to progress, and so many discussions we had, and Assemblywoman Dunn, so many times we talked at night at the House. Rita's going to wonder who I'm talking to all these times and stuff. But anyway, I just want to thank them all very much, because quite frankly, a lot of times what you read as far as like, do we ever really get along, is there so, I'll tell you what, 95% of the time, we're doing things and we're talking, and we may be very passionate about what we think needs to happen, but we're also very, I think, professional in how it gets done. We're very friendly, and quite frankly, we'll keep being they know I'll keep persevering to talk about the issues we just talked about. But the one thing I will tell you, New Jersey is a great state. These are great people, and I just thank you very much for allowing me to have one last word. Thank you.
Right, Senator, thank you so much, and round of applause for all of our legislative leaders. Thank you truly for taking the time to come and talk about these issues and to have a bipartisan dialogue, and appreciate the back and forth you always have with the business community. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. That's a big round of applause for our panelists and for Eric Scott. A great way to wrap up what was a action-packed morning, I have to say. So I think we only ran about 10 minutes overtime, which is incredible for everything that we were able to accomplish this morning. As you're walking out today, take a peek in your inbox, because you already have from us a survey we ask you to take 1 minute to complete. It'll help to inform our programming for the future. We greatly appreciate that. Big round of applause for all our panelists today. For our amazing partners, I will not read that list again so that everybody can go home, but please take 1 minute and please help me to thank the amazing team at NJBIA for putting on an outstanding program today. Not just the GA team, but our events team, our membership team, and everyone behind them. Please subscribe to get New Jersey Business Today. That's where you're going to hear what continues to go on each and every day in the State House and across the state of New Jersey. Thank you for being here to celebrate business today. Great businesses make great communities. You're all great business leaders running those great businesses. Be healthy, have a wonderful holiday season, and we will see you in the new year. Thank you.